One more day, Izza. One more day. You sure?
Yeah, I just asked. I was gonna ask if I could use my phone, but I realized I had a paper copy.
Ethan, what did you think about the questions yesterday?
I don't know. It was weird getting back into it after not doing questions like that for a while.
Okay.
They weren't terrible.
Anyone look Power School since then? No? Are you disappointed? I don't remember what your score was or anything, so I can't say you should have been or should not have been. I don't believe I released the scores yet on Google Classroom. I will, and so with that, you'll also see, like, if you forget what you marked down, you'll have access to that as well, the correct answers and all that stuff, which we're going to go over today anyway. The score that you get in Power School, and this is pretty much holds true just about all the time. The score that you get in Power School is different from the number that you actually got right, okay? And that's not like, so you should thank me right now kind of talk. It's something that we always do when it comes to AP multiple choice questions. I don't curve them, I would say, but they get scaled. And we'll kind of like explain why. We'll just go there. What do you know about the AP exam? Because I haven't said a lot about it at all. It's based upon
5.
Okay, so like for the score, yeah. So on AP exam, you get scores that going from 1's the lowest, 5's the highest. All right. Anything that is 3 or higher is considered passing. Anyone know what quote unquote passing means? Besides, I did good. Actually did well.
I don't know the exact number, but I know you did like better than a certain percent of the
And it varies. Like, it does tend to kind of be a little bit of like a bell curve, so far as percentages and things like that. So don't take this as being like 100% absolute truth. But usually for 5s, you have someone, about 10% of the people who take the test will get a 5. And this is for AP English Language. It tends to be pretty similar for a lot of the other exams, but I'm sure every subject kind of varies a little bit. So you're going to be taking a look at about 10, to 12% get a 5. About 10 to 12% get a 1. So there's kind of some equal distribution there. You'll be taking a look at a ballpark of probably about 30%. Are going to be getting a 2, and again, this is that like kind of magic cutoff. And then the rest, the percentage that we would have, which is going to be another 50%, gets spread between those 3 and the 4. So, we'll just say 25%, 25% to keep things pretty simple. So, in a negative light, because you can do a couple things here with statistics. What's a negative thing about that breakdown for you as student? Not for me as teacher, because I'm not taking it.
Everyone does well.
Yeah, I guess that could be one, because there's going to be the bottom 10% no matter what. And if you're looking like in sheer volume, what's the most common score? Like if you were to ask, hey, what'd you get? The one that, the greatest number of people are going to say is a 2, which, oh, that stinks because that's not passing. However, statistics can be manipulated in lots of different ways. While the most common score is going to be a 2, if you were to ask people, did you pass? Are more people going to say yes or more people going to say no? More people are going to say yes. Look at that, Shay. Like, we just went from being sad to, hey, this is wonderful. And this is national, so this is whether it's a student at North Hills or someone who is taking it in Boston or Atlanta or whatever the case may be. Generally speaking, over the last 3 to 4 years, the number of students taking it has been 600,000 plus, okay? So, it's one thing to see percentages, and then you start figuring out, wait a minute, okay, so 30% of 600,000, we're talking almost 200,000 people, 180,000 people didn't pass the test. So when Libby passed the test, you can be like, hey, I did better than 180,000, or plus we can throw in those ones. So now we're up to 40%, so now you can be like, I did better than 240,000 people. I did better than 250,000. And then you just feel really good. what it means to pass, according to the College Board, is where if you get a score of a 3 or higher, and this would go for any of the exams, a 3 means you are where they would expect an end-of-the-year college freshman to be in that particular subject area. So for us, it's writing. So if you get a 3, that means, Ethan, you're not, but you're on the level of an end-of-the-year college freshman. When you take the test, you're an end-of-the-year high school junior. So we're not talking like 6 months or 1 year. We're talking like 2 years. So ability-wise, that's where they would be say where you're at, which is quite an accomplishment. So I'm sorry, Libby doesn't pass. What does that mean? She's not an end-of-the-year college freshman. I think you're aware of that already. Okay. And this has nothing to do with grades and GPAs and things like that, so you don't have to worry in that light. But it just means you're not an end-of-the-year college freshman. So when you go to college, you're going to take a college writing class, just like 98% of everyone else there. The scores generally that I think a lot of students in here are aiming for are going to be the 4s and the 5s, because those are the ones that are more likely, not guaranteed, but more likely to be accepted, for college credit, depending upon where you are going. And we can kind of get into later on in the years, we post about, okay, who takes it, who doesn't. Well, I will throw this out to you right now, because end of this year, you can really start looking. Schools in Ohio, state schools in Ohio, will accept 3s. They have to. It's Ohio legislation. So, if Izza pounds out a lot of AP exams over the course of her high school career, I don't know how many you're doing, those would be credits that could potentially be coming. And that's why we've had a fair number of students going to Kent State, Akron, Ohio University, because they'll take a bunch of AP credits.
If you don't pass, does that do anything for your GPA or your grade in this class? It
Nope.
just doesn't.
Nope. No bearing. And honestly, I can't speak to this because I'm not on, college admission boards, but I've never heard of cases or people have come back, I don't think I got in there because of that AP exam score I got, whether it be here, calc, whatever the case may be. I think more often than not, schools are looking to see if you challenge yourself, and so by enrolling in the class, you're challenging yourself. And it's a one-day exam. So, stuff happens. Some days are better than other days. Is it do the announcements today? Okay. AP exam, which is going to be on that specific day, Wednesday, May the 13th. But you know how it is. Some days are better than others. Total time for you when it comes to taking this test is going to be 3 hours and 15 minutes. That's testing time. It'll be a little bit longer when it comes to breaks and all that stuff. The breakdown for it is you're going to have some essays. Johnny, do you remember how many essays you have to write? Good job. Do you know what one of those essays is going to be? You do, yeah. Rhetorical analysis, so that whole literary device thing that we've been talking about, you're going to be doing one of those. So you're going to have 3 essays that you're going to do over the course of 120 minutes or 2 hours. You have, really, that's almost in some ways 135 minutes. We'll get into that later. You also then have multiple choice questions that you're going to spend 60 minutes on or an hour. The number varies, but it's going to be approximately 55 questions.
So, on Wednesday, May 13th, are we gonna be taking the test in here?
No, you'll be in, most likely you'll be over in the middle school LGI. That'll all be kind of worked out. And if there ever were a year for it to be different, it could be this year when there's new principals in the building and organizing things. But my guess would be, especially because we have 57, I think, taking AP English language. Like, it's a fairly large group. There's not a classroom that you're going to be fitting in, So I think you'll be across the street. Or you'll be doing it in the morning. So you won't be here. You'll be over there. I'll be there. My feet will be there. My Boston cream donuts will be over by where Cut is. And my box of coffee will just be wherever I feel like it should be at that time.
Will other AP tests be on different days?
Yes, yeah, and we'll get into all those kind of schedule things. Here's the thing I want to let you know about the multiple choice questions. number versus time, what's the approximate breakdown then of time per question? It's about a minute. It's a little over a minute. But you know that there's also going to be passages that you're going to be reading. You're going to have 4 passages that you'll be reading. They won't be as long as what Shooting an Elephant was. They would actually be similar in length to like the TWA that you did for Heart of Darkness. Kind of like a double column passage, something along those lines. And ballpark around, it'll vary, and we'll get into specifics later on, about 15 questions per passage. So it is a minute per question, but it's also reading time. And so reading time will kind of shorten it down. So in theory, and not in practice, and I'm not making you self-evaluate or anything like that because it's still week 3 of school. 3, 4. 4, yes. 4 weeks, Hannah. If it were May 10th and we were doing practice, or the 11th, because that would be a Monday, I would expect you'd be done with Orwell questions in about 15 minutes. Because it'd be like a that minute per question. I'm guessing it was taking more than 15 minutes. Plus, working in groups, sometimes that can quicken, or sometimes that can lengthen the process, depending upon the people that are in there with you. So that time aspect will be something that we'll focus on. Here's the thing that I want you to be aware of. In order to get a passing score, so like say the test were only multiple choice questions, and you'll do multiple choice questions first. Any guess as to the percentage of questions you need to get right to be passing the exam headed into the essays? Like if you're just to take a guesstimate.
Isn't it 60%?
That's not bad, that's pretty close. And these are not exact, they kind of vary a little bit from time to time, probably dependent upon what the average is, but more often than not, it's actually a little lower. It's closer to 50. You're probably looking more in that 50 to 53%. 1 year, maybe it's 49. If you're at about a 65, like almost 2/3 right, you're getting a 4. If you're around like a 73, a 74, a 75, you're up around a 5. As long as you're getting at least a third of the questions right, you're going to be at a 2, and then anything less than that is going to be considered a 1. Now, where things get confusing is when we start talking about AP scores of 1 through 5 versus essay scores of 1 through 6, and then your head spins for a little bit, and then we figure it out again. But the idea would be if you're getting half of your questions right, you're passing. So, yesterday, if you were to get at least an 8 out of 15, that's a passing rate. What happens if I put an 8 out of 15 in Power School? You get sad, okay, because you're around that 50-some%. So it always varies depending on the number of questions that are on it, because there's not like one true number that works for everything. But for Power School, for our purposes, I added 3 points to it. So if yours says that you got an 11, that really means you got an 8 out of 15, which that isn't to make you feel sad or anything, that's all I got, but it's a way to kind of convert it. So generally speaking, from a letter grade standpoint, that's usually how that kind of breakdown will go a little bit for it. So if you were to get, let's say you got 12 out of 15, you're going at an 80% clip, that's a strong 5, you were getting 15 out of 15. Let's say Ethan gets a 15 out of 15, you're going to get an 18 out of 15 when it goes into Power School because you have gone above and beyond. So anytime we do an AP multiple choice, we'll always be working kind of with something along the lines of the scale. There's not going to be that point in time when we go, all right, now whatever you get is what you get so far as a Power School reference, because that's just simply not going to be fair. East of Eden, Heart of Darkness exam, I would not call an AP multiple choice. So for those, what you get is what you get. So the questions, and you were kind of asking, what can we expect for tomorrow? You're not going to have questions like yesterday on tomorrow. It would be more like the type of things that were shown in the Funky City.
Is there ever going to be a DPQ?
We have what's called a synthesis, which of the 3 essays, we'll get into that one last. Probably beginning of November-ish is when we'll start doing that. They're cousins. Like they're in the same family, they're not quite the same thing. I would say a DBQ is requiring you to have more knowledge about the source that's being provided, or for the synthesis, you're using sources, you're evaluating sources to help you come up with an argument. So for both of them, you're incorporating sources into a written response, but you're not being assessed on how well do you know this document, because there's not like that, historical component to the test that you're being assessed on. But it'll be similar, or it'll feel similar if you've taken, AP world history, or you're doing APUSH or Euro this year. So they're in the family, but they're not siblings. All right. There's going to be more questions too about AP multiple choice and all this stuff as we go along, and AP exam in general. The idea is we go over just a few things every now and then, and you'll start to feel more comfortable. Here's the big thing I want you to take away from multiple choice questions: know you're going to get some wrong. You have to have a short memory with it. Some of you will not get a whole lot wrong, and we'll be jealous of you. But you have to understand you're probably going to get them wrong at some point. I wish I could give you a secret, magical pill, potion, words of wisdom that would make you do well on them. Haven't really figured that out, other than read well and choose the correct answer. And I'm actually serious with that, and I'll explain why, in the upcoming weeks. We do a fair amount of multiple choice. People tend to be uncomfortable with them early on, and then we get better. And honestly, I think it's just because we do a fair amount of them. So you can do your nose wrinkle and all that kind of stuff. And you can read well, Hannah, choose the correct answer. That tends to work well for a lot of tests. Ethan, if you always choose the correct answer, you'll do well. Here's the good news. You folks did pretty well when it came to doing these. Number one, I'm going to run through percentages for you and let you know what's going on. For number one, first two sentences, perform which of the following? Everyone loves the Roman numeral questions. People just embrace these, except for Alex. She's the only one who dislikes them. The good news is they're really pretty much being phased out. So there's a decent chance that you won't come across a single one on the AP exam. We're still going to do them, though, because, should it happen to pop up, you've dealt with it, you can handle it. And if you can do the difficult questions, then the easy ones aren't that bad. Why don't you like them, Alex?
I don't know. I'm really indecisive, so it makes it hard.
Here's the one thing to know, because, it can, cause some issues since you got multiple options. You will never see an answer that says all of the above or none of the above on an AP multiple choice. However, you could argue that, for these, you will see like C, 1, 2, and 3. That's essentially an all of the above question. But that's the only question type that will do something like that. 86% of you went with E. Good news is 86% of you were right. So E ended up being the correct one for this, so we're taking a look at 2 and 3. The one that I could see some folks maybe kind of struggling with a little bit ends up being this number 3 part, because D ended up being the second most popular option with the 12%. It introduces the speaker's attitude towards the Burmese, because I think a lot of people could read it and at first go, well, it gives you the Burmese attitude towards the speaker when he says, I was subdivisional police officer of the town, and in an aimless, petty kind of way, anti-European feeling was very bitter. So the sense that, well, they were feeling bitter towards him. I would say 2 words, though, are pretty critical in that sentence that would let you go. It also introduces the speaker's attitude towards the Burmese. Any ideas of what those words would have been? I'll read it one more time. I was subdivisional police officer of the town, and in an aimless, petty kind of way, anti-European feeling was very bitter. Aimless and petty. Okay, now you're kind of getting his attitude towards their attitude back toward him, but you're getting that idea with that aimless and petty. But again, 86% is a pretty good clip. And here's also another thing that happened for us throughout the whole entire test. And when I'm saying, scores in here, I'm talking about really all 3 classes. The most popular answer for all of the questions was always the correct one, which that's good. Doesn't mean it was always 50%, but the most popular answer that was being chosen was the correct one. So folks were recognizing it. Kirsten, what do you think would be a key word in the question for number 2?
Accept.
Bingo. So make sure you do read the question. If they have accept, they'll put it in all caps for you, but still it's amazing, not amazing, but it's certainly there'll be people that'll go, oh, I missed that. So if you do see accept, recognize that 4 of the answers are going to be correct typically. 1 of them is going to be incorrect. So here we got to figure out which one. So each of the following quotations contain irony with the exception of. So we're taking a look at irony. What do you think? I think I heard someone say D. 82% went with D. 82% got that one wrong. Got this one right. So all this was perplexing and upsetting. Irony that I was all for the Burmese. Irony that all these oppressed me with an intolerable sense of guilt. The young Buddhist priests were the worst of all, and the crowd yelled with hideous laughter. All those are going to have some sense of irony with them. I'm thinking for number 3 is when the course syllabus started to get opened up. Anyone remember what a periodic sentence is?
The sentence to do with productive elements or subject.
Okay, so the main, it doesn't mean that the subject has to be like the last word or anything, but whatever the main element, the main content, the big idea for that sentence, it's going to be placed at the end. Extended metaphor, we're familiar with. Martin Luther King, I Have a Dream, like that, the whole bank concept that we looked at for a couple paragraphs. Extended metaphor. Parallel structures, similar sentence structure throughout. But yeah, periodic sentence, main idea at the end. So when you look in paragraph number 2 and you come across a sentence that reads, the wretched prisoners huddling in the stinking cages of the lockups, the gray, cowed faces of long-term convicts, the scarred buttocks of the men who had been flogged with bamboos, all these oppress me with an intolerable sense of guilt. That's the main concept of the sentence. That's written at the last part. That's a periodic sentence. You working tonight? Good for you. But let's say she does. When Morgan gets home, she has to go to work, empty the dishwasher, pet the dog, call Sean to give him support, help Rico with whatever little freshman problems he's having, make sure Shannon knows that she's still loved, and then she must submit her essay. That's going to be the period, or before she even gets to submit her essay, that would be a periodic sentence, because the main thing is you got to submit your essay, but all those other introductory things get done first. So we have a periodic sentence in here. The thing that we have is going to be 1 and 2. This was a 50% proposition. 50% had that. The rest were kind of bounced all over the place among the other 4, but this one's going to end up being B. I was impressed with question number 4 that 74% got it right. 74% went illusion, and the answer was illusion. Anyone have a Bedford Reader with them? And you get, Virginia, do you remember what you put for this one?
I put simile.
You put simile? So did you find what you thought was an illusion?
Yes.
Okay, because I was expecting more people to think they have found one. Where did you think it was?
My group thought it was, I don't know what it was. It was talking about how he looked like he was crucified and thought he was referring to something like
That's what I was anticipating. So, like 6 or 7 lines up from the bottom, he was lying on his belly with arms crucified and head sharply twisted to one side. If it were he was lying on his belly, in comparison to like the crucifixion, and you have a capital C, we have an illusion going on. And I think the word crucified was one that could have been bugging people, because can a person be crucified? Like, it can happen. And so it's not that, in a biblical sense, Christ is the only person who has been crucified. If you had a capital C with it, you're alluding to that specific one. It's not a term that gets used a whole lot, as what like a verb would be occurring. But because it's not referring to that specific instance, that's where the allusion does not end up occurring for it. But I was anticipating that one could throw some folks off. And that's one where, like, if you did get it wrong, you're going to go, there's some that I'm simply going to miss. Later on, there's a simile. where a comparison to the beast would have stripped the skin from his back as neatly as one skins a rabbit, and so that's where that simile comes in, if you had picked that as an answer. But 74% getting that one correct is a pretty good clip. Number 5, 90% of you went with unnecessary, which is going to be correct. For number 6, 88% of you were going with D, which is correct. So these were ones that folks were feeling pretty good about. 7 came down to 2 answers for a lot of folks. Which 2 would you anticipate? Sarah likes to do the whisper, but I never hear what she says. Sometimes I can read lips. B and C, resignation and despair, yeah. Which one do you feel more strongly about? You said B. Unlike illusion, thumbs up. So 74, I didn't look like a 7. 74% resignation, 22% was next with despair. Attitude speaker, like resignation, what would be a way to kind of like paraphrase that? If you feel resigned to do something.
Kind of more of like a meh kind of feeling. I don't know how else to look at it, but like it's kind of like I'll do it. Like it's not really like passionately one way or the other. It's kind of more of like middle.
You twisted my arm enough that I'm going to do it. Whereas if you have an attitude towards despair, this is absolutely going to ruin your day and yes, devastate you. Resignation, it might not be something that you want to do, but yeah, okay, I'll do it. Johnny resigned to the fact that I'll take English with Mr. King. It's not at that despair level. Libby's thinking about it. Is at despair because she's not making eye contact anymore.
Number 5 just makes me mad. How do you have an unnecessary attitude? Tell me how that makes any sense. That's what I want to know.
Well, his attitude towards shooting the elephant is best described as it would be unnecessary to shoot it.
Okay, we just thought he was disgusted, he doesn't want to do it, you know.
So because, and I would say in some ways 5 and 7 kind of play off each other, I feel that this is unnecessary, but there's enough of you staring at me and making me feel uncomfortable that, okay, I'll do this. Whereas if he were disgusted about shooting it, you would more likely be having a feeling sense of despair for number 7. Okay? And that's important to note that sometimes questions do play off one another, which can be positive. You know, hey, I got this one, it leads into a correct answer for another. At the same time, if you get one of those incorrect, there could be a domino effect where, you know, it ends up kind of hurting you. And as we go through some things, I think we'll better understand it. Folks did a nice job with number 8. It was 86% got reduced. You know, what word is parallel to caught? Think about this in a sense. What type of word is caught? Like Shay, part of speech, caught. Noun, verb, adjective. It's a verb. Specifically, what kind of verb? It's not catch, but it's caught.
Past tense.
So it's past tense. All right, good job. So you can know this stuff. Of those answer choices, what do you notice about reduced? It's the only one that's a past tense verb. So it's going to be in parallel with those other ones. And we were at like 86% for those. I know we're running out of time, so I'm going to run through the rest of these pretty quick. 96% got 9 correct, and that was D. 10 was one that was fairly difficult. Less than half got it right, but again, paradox was the more common answer that is not getting used. Syntactic fluency. Anyone have a definition for syntactic fluency? Hopefully you guys have syntactic fluency. The hand went up and then it went down. Well, syntactic would mean we're going to be dealing with what?
It's like a variety.
Yeah, so you are fluent in sentence structure. So you're not doing see Sam run, see Jane catch Sam, say hi dog, which isn't even a sentence. You know, so you would have a variety of like simple, compound, complex, all of those kinds of things. 12 was, we were good, number 11, 52% got this one correct, that it was irony. Metonymy and synecdoche would have been in your course syllabus, and so were the others. These are all different types of metaphor. The one that was driving people nuts wasn't 12, because that was 94%, was 13. This is the one where there was a loud, scandalized cry of go away this instant, and an old woman with a switch in her hand came around the corner. What's a switch? It's like a tree branch. It's like basically a whip, okay? They're not good. You're not supposed to use those things. So a lot of folks were going shocked, 32%. It's not shocked. Guessing Johnny wrote shocked.
Yeah.
What do you think the correct answer was? It wasn't shocked. Probably what? Yeah, it is agitated. I thought more people would have gone with D with it too. It's agitated. And folks would be going, well, okay, she's chasing people around with a whip, Mr. Kane. How can she not be outraged or shocked? Simple response would be, because she doesn't hit them. And I don't mean that to sound funny, but what is she doing? Just, yeah, they're annoying her, they're agitating her, she's kind of like scaring them away. Not outraged, where she's like hitting them or things along those lines, but it's a little bit more surprise. 60% got 14 correct with E, 78% got 15 right with A. So overall, did a very nice job with it. I'll release your scores. Always do a double check to make sure that you did get your bonus, not bonus, but you got that 3-point addition in Power. So you'll get an email saying what your actual score was in Gmail. You do want to make sure that what I put in Power School is 3 more. If not, talk to me about it tomorrow. Oxymoronic, which is 94% got. C.
Yesterday.
That was